Hi everyone, this is my first YouTube video. It might become very obvious that I'm not quite comfortable in front of a camera yet, but I'm going to do my best. And to help with the process, I figured I would just start really simple with the booktube newbie tag. My notes are over here. I will try to avoid not looking into the lens, but it might happen again just because I'm not quite comfortable with the actual recording of myself quite yet. But anyway, let's get started. So the first question is, why did you start this channel? I've been thinking about starting a channel for a really long time. I would consider myself a pretty avid consumer of YouTube, but I never quite thought of myself as creating video content because I'm actually a pretty private person. But for a lot of reasons, there have been a lot of changes in my life, and I really am looking for some kind of community that's more on my terms. My job is very, I would say, outward facing, if that's the correct term to use. I have clients and I have to do a lot of networking, go to events, things like that. And so I considered for a long time joining a book club, but at the same time, I just cannot for the life of me think of the idea of going to another event, even though it would be ostensibly to talk about something that I enjoy, just does not sound enjoyable. And YouTube to me is the least kind of, it's weird because it in some ways might be the most, but to me it seems like the least invasive of the social media platforms. I can at least theoretically do it entirely on my terms. So what are some fun and unique things you can bring to YouTube? Fun is probably aspirational at this point, but unique things, I hope that this is going to sound very cheesy, but I think that it's just being yourself. Everybody brings something unique to YouTube. The content, I will admit, can get very redundant, or maybe that's just my algorithm, but the people that I follow because there's something about their personalities or their content or the way that they communicate through their videos that speaks to me, and it's all for different reasons. That seems to be more of an organic thing that occurs. So I guess to answer that question, then I think the uniqueness will reveal itself. I will say I'm probably a little bit older than at least the people that I see making YouTubes these days, but I'm by no means the oldest, and a lot of people I follow are probably within 5 to 10 years of my age. So I think uniqueness will reveal itself, and hopefully the fun will follow, but I make no guarantees on the fun. I just really want to talk about books. So I think your mileage can vary on how fun you think that content is. And what are you most excited about for your channel? I mean, is it too simple to say that I'm excited about talking about reading and talking about books? That's what I'm excited about. It's a really lovely thought to think that anything that I would do would impact somebody else the way that other YouTubers or other content creators, is that what they're called? I'm not really sure. But what other content, like how that has had an effect in my life or impacted me in small and big ways. So that's obviously a really nice thing to think about, but I wouldn't say I'm excited about it yet because this is my first video. So I am going to be excited about successfully editing this and posting it and having it be of at least marginally decent quality. I'm going to aim low right now, and then I think I'll get excited if I can master just the basic skills. Okay, why do you love reading? I'm going to try to shorten this answer. I actually have tried to rehearse this a few times. I very much agree with what I think most people's answer is, which is that reading offers an escape, and that's very appealing, especially if you're like me and maybe, I mean, I feel like I'm more, people that I know would not describe me as a sensitive person, but I actually am quite a sensitive person. So when the world feels like it's too much, then reading is there, and it's what I love. I love that reading is there for you. The stories are always there for you, and there's a million other things I could add on to this in terms of how I think reading opens doors, not just figuratively, but quite literally. Reading opens doors. I feel very strongly and I'm very passionate about how reading is a tool that helps you, not just in the ways that you might expect with like school and your career ultimately, but just, you know, in being a person in the world, in understanding different worldviews and being able to challenge yourself, challenge your own worldview, and finding a certain level of compassion and humanity, even when it feels impossible to do. Reading is just infinitely valuable in that respect. Okay, the next question is, what book series got you into reading? The Babysitter's Club. Again, if I can figure out how to do the thing, I'll do the thing, but it was Dawn and the Disappearing Dogs, which is book number 7 in the mystery part of the series. I loved the mysteries. And that was my first book that my uncle bought for me for Christmas or my birthday or something. I read it, I'm sure, upwards of 50 times, and I became completely obsessed by that series. And it really was, I think I was about 7 or 8 when I got that book, and I might still have a copy. I'm sure that the cover is missing because I read it so many times, as I did most of those books. That was the series that really, I think, it laid a foundation for me as a reader, because it was, first and foremost, it was a comfort to me, and it also kind of became meaningful to me in different ways. I read it, I'm sure, way past the age that I really should have been reading The Babysitter's Club, but again, it was a comfort to me, and I was a very anxious child growing up. We didn't have the term really, I mean, we had the word anxious, but anxiety was not quite as discussed back then as it is now. So anyway, those books were very much my safe place, and it exposed me to, I think, the earliest forms of world building, if you think of that series as world building, which I do. I mean, it is. So yes, I'm forever indebted to Ann M. Martin and whoever her ultimate team of ghostwriters ended up being. The Babysitter's Club. Dawn was my favorite, followed in close second by Stacy. Okay, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? Well, maybe a good place to start would be to name some of my favorite booktubers. I really like Sunbeam's Jess, Anna Wallace Johnson, I think, not Anna Wallace Johnson. The Book Leo, Jack from Jack in the Books, and then I think he has another channel. I also really like ASMR Floor. She's not a booktuber per se, but she does a lot of bookish content that is nice to fall asleep to if you're into ASMR. Books and Lala is probably like an OG for me. But yeah, I don't know that I would, they're varied people. I don't know that I have a set of questions I would ask them, because the reason I'd be asking them questions in the first place is because I'm genuinely interested in the people. I also happen to like their, I came to them because I like their content. I stayed for them because I liked the person, at least the person that I can appreciate through my TV screen. So yes, this is all very parasocial. It's probably very unhealthy, but it's fine. We're all fine. So yeah, I don't know what questions I would ask specifically, but I mean, any questions that would come up organically in the course of a conversation, which I would be probably intimidated, but very happy to have with anybody that I bothered to hit the subscribe button to. I would be very excited to just have a normal person-to-person conversation, whatever that might be about. And if we happen to talk about books, even better. What challenges will be hardest with BookTube? For me right now, I just think it's kind of getting used to being, well, not being on camera. Talking to myself and filming myself is going to be the hardest because it's not natural and it kind of feels silly, but I imagine you do get used to it and it becomes less difficult as it goes on. Same with like editing. And then in terms of, time is probably the biggest challenge, ultimately finding the time to do things. But this isn't going to be something that I pressure myself to do. There's enough pressure in the world. This is something that I just want to do for fun. And in order to keep it fun, I think it has to stay really low stakes for me. And also, I'll probably need to figure out an equipment situation or doing different things around my house because this thing is kind of heavy. Okay, when did you start reading? I kind of answered this one. If you ask my mom, I started reading when I was like 3, but that's not, Liz cannot be trusted. So I probably started, learned how to read when I was about 4 or 5. I know I was young for my age to learn how to read, but it wasn't like I was reading since I was a fetus or something. So yeah, I think I was about 7 or 8 when I became a reader in the sense of having an actual relationship with reading and it being more than just learning how to understand in my brain what letters meant packaged together as a word and then what words meant together packaged as sentences and so on and so forth. Where do you read? Nowadays I mostly read at night in my bed, but I will if I have the ability. I'd love to spend a day just reading at any comfy spot in my house. I really can't read in public because it's too distracting, I find. I used to read when I was growing up. I would read absolutely everywhere. I would read, I had books everywhere. My mom would get mad at me because I had books everywhere. I had them in the dining room because I really liked reading while I ate breakfast and then dinner. I had a single mom, so we weren't like sitting down to meals, and I would just read. And I would read in the car. I would always have like 2 or 3 books in the passenger floor of the car. I would have them, in the bathroom, obviously. But I just had them absolutely everywhere, and I would get in trouble. If I did get in trouble, which I really didn't get in trouble that often growing up, I was kind of I wasn't a goody-goody, but I followed the rules. If I got in trouble, it was like reading-related offenses. I had taken a book into the restaurant, or I did get in trouble in school once because I was reading under my desk during a lesson, and like the teacher didn't even know how to punish me because you can't really punish a kid for reading, but at the same time I should have been paying attention to the lesson. I'm sure I was reading a Babysitter's Club book, by the way. What kind of books do you read? I am not really picky in terms of reading, but I would say my top 3 genres are literary / contemporary fiction, mystery, thriller, and then I have probably like a smattering of nonfiction. With like probably of the nonfiction, I'm mostly gonna pick up a memoir, but I actually am reading a really interesting nonfiction book right now. It's not outside of my comfort zone, but it's definitely one of those books that needs to be paid attention to. It's called, I can't pronounce the author's name, and every time I've tried it, it just sounds horrid, so I'm not even gonna try again. Again, if I can do the thing, I'll do the thing. But it's called The Quiet Coup, Neoliberalism and the Looting of America. I'm pretty sure that's the full title. I can't speak to eloquently about it right now because I'm only about 100 pages in, and it is kind of, it's not dry or dense even. It's really accessible, I think, but it's still, I mean, it's not, if you're not an economist or something, I mean, these are not, you know, I had to look up what technically is neoliberalism. I'm not even really sure. So it's just more of an exercise. I think for me, nonfiction is harder because it kind of feels like work in some ways, but that's okay. And then for fiction right now, I guess this isn't the question, but I'm reading The Hunter, I think. It's the second one. Yes, The Searcher was the first one, and then The Hunter is the second one. That's the one I'm reading now by Tana French. So The Hunter is the follow-up to The Searcher, about a retired Chicago cop who's living in Ireland. And I think you'd find it in the mystery thriller genre of my bookstore. That's where it was. I'm going to assume most bookstores because I think that's what Tana French is known for. But to me, that reads more kind of literary. I don't really know what the difference is, but it's definitely not like a domestic thriller that you're going to read in a day. It's pretty chunky. I think it's over 400 pages. But yeah, generally I don't find myself to be too picky about genre. I just have the things that I gravitate toward. But I'm really happy to receive recommendations. In fact, I got The Quiet Coup because I was reading a New York Times article, and I will always read the comments if I can. I don't know why, I just have a sickness. But anyway, it was recommended in the comments and it just sounded interesting, and so I picked it up. What does your book collection look like? I have so many books, and they're all throughout my house. We have multiple bookshelves, and I have piles of books and book paraphernalia and like little, you can't see it in this angle, but there's like a couch right here and a chair over here, and there's bookshelves by both of them. So it's very, very conducive to reading. So I think that's the last of the questions. And then that's going to be the end of my video for this one. If anybody ever watches this, then I would be excited for them to do that, and excited for them to not make too much fun of me, which is probably unavoidable when you're putting yourself on the internet. If I have another video coming out soon, it probably would be a year-end reading wrap-up type video, or maybe even just a short one discussing one of the books that I'm reading now, or maybe even like my favorite book that I read this year. I did want to, I don't know if I'll continue this, but I like the idea of having 3 other things that I'm enjoying. So I've gotten this, like, if you listen the Ezra Klein show, he always asks people, what are 3 things you're reading? There's podcasts I've listened to that would ask the guests, you know, what are you consuming in pop culture? So I just wanted to have something similar where I talk about a couple of things at least that aren't necessarily reading related, although they can be. So in that spirit, I'm going to start very broadly. So the first thing that I'm really enjoying that is reading related is Substack. I know it's becoming more popular, but I am just really, really enjoying Substack right now because it's like, it feels like a throwback to blogging. I used to really like to read blogs back in my 20s, my early 20s. So Substack, and then what's another thing that I'm really enjoying rewatching Dairy Girls right now. I'm sure that many people have watched Dairy Girls, but God, that's such a perfect show. I love it, and I'm really enjoying rewatching Dairy Girls. And I'm also finally enjoying, hopefully staying away from Black Friday sales. So thank you again, and I hope to be back really soon.